at the end of the pre-grid. Let's have a look at your final Minimax grid of the season for Rotax Max Challenge Germany in 2021. After a fantastic race in adverse conditions that were really imposing themselves on the circuit, Kenyon Washington, 1-1-4, starts from pole position. He will have alongside him Alexander Klugel in the 1-8-0. Then it's David Girush in the 1-21. that starts on P3 ahead of Matthias Schulte and 9 Bretag. Bretag actually got a 3-second time penalty for going 2 wheels out of the tram lines. So it will be determined on what happens now. Will it be a double victory for Kenyon Washington this weekend? Or somebody like Alexander Klugel, David Girush or Matthias Schulte? Schulte actually, that might cause a little bit of an upset. Schulte did take the intermediate classification after yesterday's proceedings. So 9 minutes on the clock, plus an additional lap. The final race of the 2021 Rotax Max Challenge Germany season for Minimax. As now they start to get themselves into the rolling start formation, into the tram lines. Revs rise. Are we ready? Looks like we are off and racing. And Alexander Klugel has already gotten in front of Kenyon Washington. Matthias Schulte trying to go side by side. That's not going to end well. That is not going to end well if they nearly touched a little bit more than what they did. As all, there's been a little bit of sideways action, courtesy of David Girush, and Matthias Schulte was hung out to dry a little bit there. Like a pair of Levi 501s on a washing line. Gets through, does David Girush. Alexander Klugel now leads the way. Kenyon Washington is in second. Girush third. Schulte. And now there's going to be a change for second. Girush now gets past Washington going through the hairpin. And this is the first lap, but Washington responds in kind through the inside of the right-hander. He had enough room to do it because Girush ran wide and took a different line, but Kenyon Washington keeps ahead out of the final corner. Who's going to get the run? Girush could get the run. He's in the slipstream, he's in the tow, but Washington keeps the kart in front, but he runs wide through turn one. Girush gets through. Schulte also closing in, and Girush running a little bit wide through the next one. Bit of clash of wheels between Washington and Girush has a little bit of a nibble at the back bumper of Kenyon Washington. Got to be careful with that because otherwise he could get a front fairing penalty. Through in towards the hairpin they go. And Alexander Klugel is about 9/10 of a second away. Girush gets a real good amount of traction coming out of that far end hairpin. But Kenyon Washington able to just put the cart where he needs to, just to keep Girush at bay. Schulte in fourth, 9 Bretag in fifth place. 2 minutes down, 7 to go. Klugel's lead now has been decimated to the tune of half a second as Washington just put in the fastest lap and brought along Girush to the party. As Girush gets a bit rambunctious, elbows out for Girush, and he gets through on Washington very nice and cleanly right there and then. There's enough room to make it work, and Kenyon Washington was of the state of mind, had the peripheral vision to keep himself out of harm's way, because he knows that if anything happens in front, as Girush trying to go for the lead on Klugel. Klugel noticed that the move was going to happen, stays ahead for the minute. And this looks to be the sweet overtaking spot for Kenyon Washington. He launches it up the inside of David Girush and gets the job done. Nicely timed there by Kenyon Washington. So a great battle at all the way up and down the order. It's a little bit of a not so much of a fait accompli for Matthias Schulte and 9 Bretag, because they could still factor into this race. anything is possible, and it normally happens in motorsport. Just under 7/10 of a second separates first from second position, so Klugel leads. Washington in second, fending off Jürisch in third. Schulze fending off Nein Bretag, who has just put in a personal best of a 59.708 second lap time. Some great racing being showcased by these young drivers, these young superstars of the future who have high goals, high ambitions. And Kenyon Washington was closing there on Alexander Klugel, and we've had a moment there. That's Matthias Schulze, who's just gone round, and he's decided to do a bit of a Nitro RX, a bit of rally crossing there in the karts. That's not what he wanted to do at the tail end of the weekend and also at the season. Alexander Klugel, Kenyon Washington and David Jürisch covered by less than 4.5 tenths of a second to what has been 4 laps of racing. We're about to hit the halfway point of the final race of their season. Jürisch looking up the inside, decided to think better of it. Washington's got a good run on Klugel going through the hairpin. And this could be rather nip and tuck. Jürisch to the outside of Washington. This could be rather close indeed. And Washington looks to the inside to get the lead. Back off of Alexander Klugel, but Klugel manages to get through. And Jürisch gets through as well. Back up into second. And it's nip and tuck. A little bit of a different line. And Washington up the inside of Jürisch to retake second place. Some very good spatial awareness from these drivers, and Jürisch now back up the inside through the final corner on Kenyon Washington. This is changing more times, this battle for second, than I've had hot dinners. Through into turn one once again. This is absolutely a brilliant way of ending the season. As I said earlier on this weekend and earlier on in the broadcast today, that we might have the smallest grid with Minimax, but they are putting on one hell of a show here today at Wittgenborn for their final race of the season. So Alexander Klugel still leads, but he keeps on going wide through that hairpin. He's going to allow an opportunity for David Jürisch to get through, and Jürisch was looking. He had a sniff, did Jürisch, but did not have a chance of getting through on that particular occasion. But Jürisch is trying to do what he can to get past. He's going to try and go through on the final corner. Alexander Klugel gets in front and stays in front. And what's even more impressive is how much of that kart was controlled by David Jürisch sideways through the final corner. He made it work. Now the times are coming down. We're into the 58s. So David Jürisch has put in the fastest lap of the race, a 58.602. The two at the front have started dropping Kenyon Washington ever so slightly behind. Whether the track is starting to dry a little bit, I'm not sure. It depends on how many brollies are up. So 2.5 minutes to go, and Jürisch goes a little bit wider. Washington very strategic in how he approached the hairpin. He used the curves there, and that could help him a little bit, but time is fast running out. As they say, time waits for no one. What that means is that anything can happen. Kenyon Washington unable to keep pace with Klugel and Jürisch. Alexander Klugel came into this round looking for second in the championship. This might be the result that secures that for him, depending on the drop scores after today's activities. We're into the last minute and a half or so. So 1 minute 30 plus an additional lap. Klugel still leads. Jürisch trying to close on in once again. Gap was 1/10.5 of a second last time round after the completion of lap number 7. So 1 minute and 8 seconds plus an additional lap still to go. And Jürisch is waiting. It's looking rather close going through turn 1. He doesn't get the run that he wanted because Klugel shut the door. Good bit of work from Alexander Klugel to have kept in front. as we head into the last 45 seconds of this race. And also 45 seconds plus an additional lap of the season, no less. Mika Trapp is pretty much assured the title. Alexander Klugel could be gunning for second in the championship because Simon Meyer decided not to attend this weekend for other commitments. But Alexander Klugel, next time around, after this lap, will get the final lap board. Whilst these two are battling tooth and nail, this could allow Kenyon Washington to close in. But if Kenyon Washington in the 1:14 is not too far behind, I don't think that's the case. I think he's way back, 2.6 seconds. The story has unfolded. It's hit the final chapter here in Minimax, and David Jerush looking up the inside. He's gone for the lead and he's gotten it done. But Alexander Klugel looking up the inside again, through into the next right-hander. Not on this occasion, but Jerush, if he drifts wide like that, Klugel could have a shot at the hairpin. Out of the left-hander. Right through the sweeping left into the hairpin. Klugel will have one more lap after this to go for broke, go for gold for this weekend. But final lap board will be out this time. David Jerush now has a 7.9 of a second advantage over Alexander Klugel, who could close that in the dying moments of this race. Kenyon Washington in third position, 2.668 seconds off of this battle. Nein Bretag in fourth, and Matthias Schulte rounding out the five strong. Matthias Schulte was the winner after the ranking after heats. Kenyon Washington took the victory in Wertungslauf 1 earlier on today. But in the second race, it has been a different story altogether, because we are corners away, 2 more to go, and David Jerush will cap his season off on a high out of the final corner. The 1:21 takes the checkered flag, and he's look at the exultation, look at the joy, the exuberance of David Jerush in the 1:21 taking the victory. That is how you end a season. Kenyon Washington tried as much as he could, but unfortunately would not take the victory, but would end up on the final step, well, would be the final person on the top 3. Let's have a look at the results for the final Minimax race of the season for RMC Germany 2021. David Jerush takes the victory by 1.4 seconds ahead of Alexander Klugel, who by my reckoning, my guesstimate, will be second in the championship, with no Simon Meyer being present, but that's provisional. Kenyon Washington rounds out the top 3 ahead of Nein Bretag, with Matthias Schulte completing the top 5. And that concludes the Minimax action for Rotax Max Challenge Germany in 2021 here at Wittgenborn.